Okay, so I'm just going to go through the drawing of the Fenwick Stone warehouse building in Balmain, and starting with the as-existing floor plan. So I'm going to do everything from scratch without using any predefined settings. So in other words, I'm going to be with the standard AutoCAD metric template, which is AutoCAD ISO. And then I'll begin by drawing something to set out my building first before I even go to make any layers. So using the rectangle tool, I'm going to give a point that's just above and to the right of the origin. Sometimes people begin on the origin, but in this case I want to leave a bit of room and set my start point out from that corner. So I'm just going to click a point there that you can see is inside this XY plane, and use that as my start point, and then type in the overall size of this building, which is 12,420, comma 7820. And that's always good practice. When you begin an AutoCAD drawing, you'll see it's zoomed in usually, and you won't know where. So by drawing a rectangle or something that's the size of your space, you can then zoom extents. So if you right click, you can go to zoom, and then right click again and choose zoom extents. Or if you double click with the wheel, that should do the same thing.
And what layers are you starting with?
So I haven't started with layers, I've just started drawing, and I'm going to make my layers in a moment.
So this one is from this layer zero.
It is layer 0, that's right, exactly. So if you haven't drawn very much, that's fine. But you don't want to go too far without making layers, definitely. So now I'm simply going to offset to give my wall thickness 460, and then select the rectangle and click to the inside. So at this point, I'll probably start thinking about making layers. So I'm just going to go to the Layer Manager, or Layer Properties, and start with a new layer, a wall existing, or just exist, or even EX. So with the colours there, it doesn't really matter, you're never going to print the colours, and so it's really just a visual cue for you to see on the screen, and so I'll often use a bluish colour for existing. And then the line weights, again, it's for existing, so I'm going to keep these fairly light. So either 0.2 or 0.25, depending on the scale. Because this is 1 to 50, I think we can go to 0.25. And, well, I'll make it the current layer for now, and that's enough. So I'll then simply select those rectangles, and then in the layer drop-down list, you can choose those and easily change them. So going further, I can then explode the inner rectangle. So I'm just going to click on that and then click on the explode button. And then use offset to get the post spacing. So again, just clicking on offset, and then always remember, if you're still struggling with offset, it'll always ask you for the distance first. So you just have to get used to always giving a distance after clicking on the offset tool, and then of course enter, and then I can select that line, click to the right, we know that's 1,000, and then the vertical distance, or the distance measuring vertically, is it's actually not dimensioned because it's centered. So instead of using offset and giving a distance from the top or the bottom wall, you can just draw a new line using the line tool, of course, from the midpoint there on that wall through to the midpoint at the front, all perpendicular. And so now I'll offset again, this time 75. And I'll choose that line and offset below. So I might offset again using that same distance. So I've clicked on the offset tool. It's got the same distance there already set, so if I press enter, it's going to keep that, and I can select that centre line again and click above, just so that when I zoom in you can see a bit more clearly what I'm doing there. So I've given the width of that post, and now I could offset again, this time 150, and select the vertical line. And so that's just so that you can see the size of the post that I'm trying to create. But I'm actually going to go and make a layer for that as well. So I call this a post or column. I think in this case, because we don't have columns, it's fine just to call these posts. And because they're timber, I'm going to make them a yellowish tone. So again, the colours are up to you, but if you use the standard material colours, it'll help you to get used to those. So do you remember how to look up the standard material colours? Yeah, exactly, that standard, the Australian standard that I showed you. So they're the only really standard colours that you'll find for materials. But again, don't believe those people who tell you there are rules for colours in AutoCAD. It's usually people who aren't that experienced who believe that. Again, they're not going to print, they're all going to print black, so it's just a guide for you, but again, those material colours will help you with some other things. So then the line weight there, because this is existing, we can leave on 0.25. Oh, and actually, sorry, what I should also add to the layer name there is a post, because this is existing as well, exist. So is it clear that you'll need one set of layers for the existing elements and another set of layers for the new? So I'll make this layer current now, and I'll go and then draw a rectangle, simply snapping to these two intersections, and then zooming out a little bit, I can now select that rectangle and then simply use copy, click a base point to start measuring. Doesn't matter where that is, of course, because we're typing in measurements. So I've clicked the base point. Now I need to give the direction from that point. So taking it to the right to make it 0 degrees, and then I can type in the spacing for this post, which is, well, it's, if you've got the drawing, 2025 plus 150, so that would be 2175. Enter. Okay, so that's obviously a quick way of copying the post, but what might help you when you're setting out dimensions like this is instead using offset and putting in construction lines like I did for the first one, so I just want to show you that. So here the spacing is 2025, and then again the post thickness is 150. You can see how quick it is just using offset by pressing enter to repeat it each time. And then my next spacing is 2350. And then again 150 for the next post. And then the last one is actually different again, 2355. Well, if they were even, you could, but they're not. Yeah. Yeah, if they were, definitely, yep, you could. Yeah. If they were even, yep. Okay, so you can see then that I've put in these construction lines, And now, if I go to copy the rectangle, I've selected it first, and then I can click copy, and then simply snap to the bottom left corner, and then go along snapping to the intersection at each of these construction lines. And that's almost as quick as typing in the measurements using copy, but there's probably less chance of error there if you put the construction lines in like that. So now I can do the windows and the door opening, and that's going to give me almost the whole drawing. So the windows are interesting actually when you do the setup for those. Firstly, I'll go to the wall layer, and I'm just going to draw a line using the line tool. And so to set my measurement out from the corner, I'm going to show you maybe a technique that you may not have used because it's a little bit more advanced, or it's using some of the options that take a little bit of practice. But basically there, all I've done is click on the line tool, and now I'm going to go over the corner, and you can see that the little notch that was there, or the little marker that was there, has gone away. But if I go over it again, it'll come back. So that's, no, that's the key. So I'm not clicking anywhere, just moving the cursor, and you can see these little markers that come up are used as a set-out point, and they're actually part of the tracking system. So you can see down here, sorry? Well, just from the line, yeah, so from anything. So you need this option, show snapping reference lines, turned on. And you can see below that, the correct name for it is actually auto snap. So when that option's turned on, those little blips, is actually the technical term for them, those blips will come up. But then again, if you move over the point again, they'll clear. So moving to that corner one last time, I've got the blip coming up, and now I can track from that point, and you can see it's giving me this dashed line, and that's the tracking line or the reference line. So with that, I can now type in a measurement. And so the distance of my window from the corner is 650. So I'm going to type in 650 and then press enter. And you can see now that it's starting to draw my line, that distance from the corner. Right, so that's obviously the fastest way to do it, but can you think of some easier ways that if you're maybe not comfortable using that approach? Because again, it does take a bit more experience with AutoCAD than some of the other things we've been doing. So if that isn't working for you, what's another way? Yeah, you could measure, yeah. Yeah, that would work, yeah. Or what about using the same approach I used to put these lines in? I could offset one of these outer lines. And that would work almost as well. So I can use the explode tool again to explode this outer rectangle, and then use offset. Again, our distance is 650, and choose this bottom line, and then come up. And so now I just need to use trim. And here it's really important that you don't just press enter to make everything an edge, because if that were the case, then we'd end up with lots of extra lines that we'd have to trim because of all the construction lines that I've got there. So it's really important using trim here that I choose this edge, then press enter, and then simply choose the line that I want to cut. So using that approach doesn't take that many more steps. And then I can continue on using offset with the window spacing, or the window opening size, which is 1400. And then this next part is probably the part that I think a lot of people skip and don't know that it's going to cause them problems later. So a lot of people would leave it at that and then just draw the window in. But what you really should do is trim that opening. It's the only way to get the drawings to look the way they're supposed to. Yeah, this is all on the existing wall layer, except for the posts. But this is all part of the wall. I haven't drawn the windows yet. So I will when I make the window, yeah. But I haven't made the window yet. So these lines here are all part of the wall. Those two lines there.
Yeah, so like the lines that you've got in the window.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So now I'm going to use trim, and I can just press enter here to make everything a cutting edge, and then I can take away those lines. Okay, so again, that's the part I think a lot of people miss, that you need to trim the wall splay to then draw in all the parts of the window, including the window sill. And the reason is that those things need to be a different line weight. So I'll go now and make some new layers. So I'm going to go to just my layers. So I'll start with another layer that I need for the walls. So a wall projection. And just so it's ordered a little bit better, what I might do is put the existing at the beginning of the layer name. So this is not conventional, but it's the way I often will do it. So putting an X there at the beginning, to me tells me it's an existing layer, and I can take exist off the end, and it's going to group these together a little bit better. And
So you kind of group them.
yeah, exactly. It's mainly just thinking ahead when we start putting in the proposed layers, we want them to be separate. So if you haven't already got your existing and your proposed layers separated, or the objects separated, you'll need to start doing that as well. So now you can see I've got a X wall projection. So because this part of the wall, so I'm not even to the window yet, but I need to draw the window sill. So you can see here, we've got the wall, the top of the wall that the window sits on is going to be visible in plan. Okay? So that's what I'm drawing now. So I'll use a similar colour, just a lighter blue. And then the line weight for that, I'm going to set to lighter than what I used for the wall. Oh, just a lighter blue, 151. But again, there are no rules with the colours. It's up to you what you use for the colours. So,
Because very often I get lost in my layers.
yeah, well, you've got to have a system for the naming. The colours are really just a visual guide for you, so don't worry too much about the colours. No one else is going to see those. And every office you go to, they'll have a different system. But the line weights are really the thing you need to focus on. So here I've only used 0.25 for the existing, and then I'm going to use 0.15 for all of the existing that needs to be lighter. So now I can draw some lines connecting those two corners for my window sills. Okay, so then going further for the windows, now I can finally make a window layer. So I'll just have it as a window existing, AX window. So AX window, and well, typically if you just say window, what would that have on it? What part of the window? The frame, yeah, that's right. So what part of the frame? The frame below the cut plane, the frame in projection, or the frame in elevation, or where it's being cut? Yeah, well, that's the thing. So it actually would be where it's cut. So we can say window frame, so it's a bit clearer. That's effectively what all of it will be. But I'll go and make the next layer, maybe so that it's even clearer. And this is not from AutoCAD, this is just basic drawing principles that apply to all design drawings, but particularly for interiors and architecture, using the appropriate line weights and then breaking your layers up accordingly depending on when you need to set different line weights. So here I've got another layer called AX window projection. So coming back to the window frame, well, what material is the window? Timber, most likely. Probably there's a good chance you won't be changing the windows. In fact, I highly recommend that you don't replace windows in a heritage building, of course. So, so the windows, again, should be timber. So one of the yellowish tones to remind you of the material. And then, so what's that, 51 actually is what I've used for the post. I like to use different colours for different layers if I can help it. I've used a slightly different yellow to the one I used for the post. Again, just as a visual cue for me. Then for the projection, I'm going to use another yellowish tone that's maybe a bit darker, so I know that that is going to have a lighter line weight. So again, the frame is the part that's cut in plan, so that's going to have the heavier line weight, 0.25. The projection, or the other part of the window, is again not cut in the plan, so that has the lighter line weight. I'm just using 0.15 for that. So finally, I'll make a layer for the glass, because I'll need that as well. So AX, well, just glazing is okay, since we don't have a lot of complexity in this project. We can just have one layer for all of the glass, and I'll use a cyan colour for that. Maybe I'll even just use true cyan. And then it's a convention with glass that you make it heavier than other things that are cut. So I'll make it 0.3, even though it's existing. And, well, actually, I'll make the frame layer current. So they're the layers I'll need for the windows. So it's 3 layers. And that's fairly standard. Most objects, even existing elements, you'll need 3 layers for many, also at least 2 layers, sorry, but then quite often you'll need a third as well. But at least 2. So for the things being cut, which is the window frame, and then the things in projection, which is obviously window projection. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thicker. Yep, yep, just a little bit thicker. Yep. Okay, so now I'll draw my window. I'm only going to do a very simplified window. So it's really easy to draw. I'm just going to draw a line from the midpoint of one side of the opening to the midpoint on the opposite side. And then with offset, I can set the distance to 50, whether or not that's going to give me most of the window. So I can select the line I've just drawn, click to the right, select it again, click to the right, sorry, click to the left. The window frame layer. So, yeah, so window frame. 50. Yep. Because we want the window frame to be 100mm wide. So I've drawn a centre line and then 50mm either side of that. And then still with offset set to 50, I can then offset the wall line inwards 50mm. And the standard size that you draw a window frame is 50, not 40. I know you might have done 40 with some other things, but 50 is the standard. And then using trim, I'll just press enter here to make everything a cutting edge, and I'm going to choose these lines on the outside to trim away, and then I'm going to choose the 2 lines either side of the frame, I suppose, and then also the line of glass. So now I'm just changing the layers of all of those new lines back to window frame. Yeah, oh yeah, sure. I'm just going to do the whole plan. I'm recording all of this, and hopefully this is a revision for most of you, but if it's not, then you've got the video. Sorry?
The actual glass is only one line.
Yes. Oh yeah, just one line. That's right. Yeah. And you give the thickness with a line weight. So I'll set that to glazing, and then we'll draw a new line. So I'll change to the window projection layer, draw my lines, and then I'm going to turn the line weights on down here just so that you can see the line weights coming from the layers now. Maybe just to make it a bit clearer what the reason that we've got those different layers. So can you see how these parts of the window frame are the parts that are cut, and the parts either side of the glass are below the cut plane, so they need to be lighter. So going a bit faster now, I'll put in the other windows, and so if you set it up properly, there's no point just doing part of it. You need to do it all properly before even worrying about copying it. Because if you do it in a not so good way and then copy it and try and get it all finished, you're going to have to come back and fix all of the windows. When if you get it right on one, then of course when you copy it, you don't have to go and fix anything. So, so here I'll start with the openings. Now, again, with offset, we can do that fairly quickly, but I'll use the method I showed you before, just to do it a little bit faster. So I'm just using shortcuts here to use offset and trim, and then with the line tool again, I can put the windows along the top wall. So again, I'm just using the dimensions off the drawing here. Oops. Oops, what did I just typed in an extra 0 there, I think. So 2900 is the spacing for the next window, and then 1400 again, and then 2700, and 14 again. Yep. So you can see there, I'm really just using the same commands over and over, offset and trim. But the key there is that I've put in the openings first before trying to draw the windows. And that's where I think people create a lot of work for themselves by doing things in the wrong order. And again, so putting the openings in first makes it much more efficient and also logical in the way that you set things out. And so it's also going to relate to the design process, because you shouldn't be trying to document and design your windows. All you need to do is give an opening size. So that's what I've started with there. And maybe I'll just change the layer colour of that wall layer so that it's a bit easier for you to see. And so now I can use mirror to show you another tool. You probably might realise there are many ways of getting this opening copied to the other side, but I'll use mirror. So there I can just bring that over the other way and trim just like I did earlier. So you can see how quickly you can get a drawing like this done. If it's all rectilinear, it should be really simple for you. But really there, I just want to emphasise the importance of thinking about your line weights, the way you manage your layers. Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do right now. That's right. So then, before I copy the window into the other openings, I'm going to make a block for that. And anything that's repeated like this, the basic rule is if it's repeated more than once, you should make a block for it. And you should be able to make your own blocks. If you're relying on blocks from the library, you're never going to get there with AutoCAD. You'll see any experienced person with AutoCAD won't really use other people's libraries. They'll make their own. And again, they'll make blocks as they go, like I'm doing now. So here I'm simply going to select the window. Yep, sure. Yeah, 50 mil. Yep. Okay, so here I'm going to select the window there by selecting left to right, and then get the window sills by going right to left to make sure I don't get the lines from the wall, or for the cut part of the wall. This is the sill, so that's okay. And then the shortcut for block, it's a nice easy one to remember. B is the shortcut, or you can choose block on the tab there and go to create. And then we'll call this existing window, or window exists, whatever you like. So you can see there, that's now a block. Actually, I might go back, I did that a bit too quickly. In that file, that's right. Yeah, yeah. You can, but then you're just exporting a drawing file. So AutoCAD blocks, they're stored within drawing files. So if you save your drawing file, it's going to have the blocks in it. Yeah. So, okay, so here again, we can give that name, window exist, and then make sure you click on the insertion point, and here I'll use the corner of the wall, and that's it, and then click OK. So now if I go to insert, the block's there in the list, there's only one to choose. If you want to change the options for blocks, you need to go onto that drop down and then go to more options. So this time I'm going to tick specify on screen for rotation. So that option there at the end under rotation. I click OK now. I can place the window in the same way, but with the extra option of rotating my block. And then I can just go ahead and place the others. So I might leave it at that point, but yeah. But again, hopefully these things, if you've done the geometry exercise, these will be all things that should be very simple for you. And again, an existing plan like this shouldn't take you more than half an hour. So in this case, I can just place that same way as the other one actually, because it's centered. And so just to make sure it's clear that that window is a symbol. That's not the way the window would really be built, but it's an existing window, so you don't need to draw in all of the detail, and you don't even need to put it in the right place in the opening. In reality, it will be much closer to the outside, but it's fine in this case to draw it centered, again, because it is basically a symbol. So I'll clear those construction lines, just so you can see the posts there more clearly. And I'll just point out that maybe with the door, if you're going to have a go at doing that one, that you need to get the opening done first before the door, just like I did with the windows. So using offset, for example, with the distance 510 from those window openings. And you can cut those. So I might give you a minute to get to that point, if you haven't already. And then I'll do another demo on the doors. So we're spending a bit of time on those, and then dimensions and text as well. But if you've got this already, then have a look at the section that's up on the whiteboard there, and make sure you've got your existing section set out, or at least start to set that out. But that's what I'm going to do next after I finish off this plan. That won't take very long.